I tried to do the tea time, where I started in the future. That's been working for me pretty consistently. For some reason, it did not work this time, so I just went ahead and started a new one.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Cool. Looks like we got it.
Good.
How you been, man?
I've been great.
Good.
I'm kind of interested to hear about your whatever experiences in Asia. That's probably more exciting than my dumb car wreck.
Well, sorry to hear
Someday.
about the car wreck, but I'm glad that you're okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. You know what? I want to see if I can get a few people in here so that we can just have a dialogue and talk about various things and make it interactive. And I know that Jen Ledbetter had an issue, and I was hoping we could kind of talk through that some too. And I'm going to message her now to see if we can get her in here. Looks like she is offline. Awesome. I'm going to send her a message anyway. Hey, could you please join? Okay. Who else wants to join? Come on, Derek. Come in the live stream. Oh, is it not broadcasting the live stream yet? Is it not going to YouTube? I think okay, it says live now. Let me see. Yep, it's good. Okay, so YouTube is fine. Hey, Barb, thanks for joining us. And Paul and Victor. Okay, cool. We have enough to get going. I think it accepts up to 10 people, right, in the live stream.
Yes.
Yeah. Before I had I wanted we thought just to have the presenters in here, but we could pretty much have anybody in here who wants to talk or ask questions and whatnot. And some people just want to watch it anyway. Anyway, thanks for joining us. This is Tea Time, and welcome. Happy New Year. Hope you guys had a great break. John, you've done such a great job at running it. You know, feel free to let me know if you have any interest in the future, and in any of you. But I'm definitely looking for ideas, and I want to make this a more social event, a more interactive experience. And I know that Jen Ledbetter had a problem. I'm not sure if she's going to join us. Maybe something came up, but she was interested in learning about ads and seeing if what we had could offer her a solution for what she's working on. So I think those type of things were pretty cool too, where we could just work out problems together. If we don't have anything else, I'm just going to talk about what I've learned regarding Eventful. I had an issue come up where I kind of stayed up to like 2 a.m. in the morning working on it, and it was fun. I learned a lot. It was an escalated issue. So if nothing else, I'll talk about that. Anyway, we have Sean who just joined us. Lay, I haven't met you. Who are you? And am I saying your name right?
Maysam. That's actually Maysam.
Mesa, that's you. Hey, Mesa. It says, okay, cool.
Yeah, I know. It's a nickname. So I haven't gotten any complaints yet, but if I do, I'll start a new Gmail for my work, I guess, with my own name.
Nice. Okay. Does anybody want to say anything else?
I think that Dave Grohl icon is like the epitome of professional Mason, so you're on the right track.
Thank you.
I have a lot of room to talk with my Nick Cage as ET profile pic, but you know.
Awesome. Well, we have an interesting lineup today in which we don't really have a lineup. We have Paul starting things off, and he's going to give a 5-minute discussion, and is pretty much free after that. So we'll go ahead and give control over to Paul, if you can hear us and everything, Paul. And
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I will grab the screen and tell me if you see my giant lead slide there. Some things I like about Mercurial. Showing up? Okay, good. All right, so thanks, Rob. And I'm definitely all for the idea of more social. Especially with our dev team being about half remote, it's a challenge to uh, facilitate that kind of stuff and overcome the technical obstacles and just the normal social inertia. But it's great to have Q&A and discussion, or even just a little bit of back and forth. So I'm all for it, and let's keep trying to do that. So here's my spiel. I booked myself for 5 minutes, and it really will be about that short. I just, for a while, I wanted to talk a little about Mercurial, which is a distributed version control system, much like another one that we use. And I know we have many Mercurial users among us, and I don't profess to be any kind of technical expert, or I'm not the kind of guy who draws ASCII diagrams when you ask about branching, but I do have a preference, and I enjoy some things about the tool. And even though I've been using Git full-time at work for the last 4 years, I still use Mercurial for all my personal projects. So I just to be clear, I don't hate Git. Git's fine, it's powerful, it does the job, and it's certainly gives us all kinds of things that we didn't have before. As a distributed system, it gives us all kinds of things, but Mercurial gives those things too. And so I just wanted to talk briefly about what I like about Mercurial. So it really comes down to the UI for me. I don't have any kind of technical, if you Google Mercurial versus Git, and you'll find endless posts on the subject, or Git sucks. That's enriching also, but I don't have any arguments on the merits really from the storage and implementation, because for my purposes they're Git and Mercurial, which are the alternatives in my book. I hear that people use Bazaar, but I don't know any. And I've used Darks, and that's great. But anyway, it's versus Git, and the UI is a huge win for me with Mercurial, assuming the tool is sufficiently powerful, which it definitely is. So here's just a tiny thing that Mercurial does that's a quality of life thing. Git makes it really easy to make aliases, and so you may have an alias CI for commit like I do, but this is just a sample 5 Mercurial commands and what you actually have to type to get them to run. ST for status, DI for diff, UP for update, which is like checkout, INC for incoming, which I'll talk about, and outgoing. But it's nice. You spend a lot of time in the command line like we do, and you appreciate a few saved keystrokes here and there, and not having to backtrack when your fingers get the 4th or 5th character wrong. So this seems like a superficial thing, but it makes using the tool really just pleasant. And sure, you can do a lot with Git aliases, but this is all just bone stock Mercurial on any box that you're running it on. Here's another thing that Mercurial does that I'm always wishing Git can do, and I'm sure by the end of this somebody will have a gist for me that shows some Git recipe for this. Although I've looked and I haven't found anything equivalent, but Mercurial has these built-in commands, incoming and outgoing, that will check with the remote repo, the origin, and see if there are commits that aren't in the copy you're working in, or vice versa, and summarize them for you. So if I say HG out, like in this example here, then it compares the origin with mine and says, okay, this one change set 222 is not there in the remote. So I know that what I'm pushing. I've certainly wished this a lot when I'm rebasing, especially because I want to know, how different is what I'm doing than the other end. And again, there are tools or ways to do this that I probably am not aware of, but Mercurial makes it so easy that I haven't had to fish for anything else. And for what it's worth, just a side note on this, if you look at the output in this little example, you see the change set is identified by what looks like a hash, which it is, but to the left of the colon is an incremental integer rev identifier that's only used in the local repo, so that's not a global ID that I can use with other people who have a clone of this repo, but locally I can use that instead of using a hash or even an abbreviated hash, and that's handy when you're working with a lot of different revs. It's sequential and just makes intuitive sense once in a while. So just wanted to point that out if you haven't seen that. And and then that's it. There's all kinds of other little things I love. I just throw out the last few. No staging area. I just the Git index. Just never. I never miss it when I'm working with Mercurial. And granted, I'm working on personal projects that are in the tens of thousands of lines instead of hundreds of thousands and dozens of repos. But no staging area, so you never have to mess with what did you add or not add. You just make your changes, commit, and push. HDRoot tells you what the top of the working directory is. So if you forget where you are or what repo you're in, you have it with a single command. Bitbucket is fine. GitHub is swell. It's a wonderful success story. But Bitbucket gives you free private repos and does Mercurial hosting, and so I think it's swell. And Mercurial is written in Python, so we think that's cool. So anyway, that's my spiel on Mercurial, and I'm happy to know that I have other people who enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to whatever corrections to my oversights that I have. Anybody have questions, or you want to just roll with it, Rob?
Yeah, thanks. At this point, we could take time for questions.
Yeah. Okay, wait. See, I think you can do this in Git with a longer command. I like that just as a general response to anything about Mercurial. I think you can do this in Git with a longer command. So yeah, that's I'll check that. Thanks, my Sam. So yeah, I mean, Git can pretty much do anything, so I'm not surprised that it's there, but I will acknowledge. So yeah, I gave my screen up, and
so Barb, Drew, John, Mason, or Leh, Sean, Victor, any of you guys have any live feedback you want to contribute to that?
Actually, expanding on that, the checking out what hasn't been pushed. There is a link I'm going to post on. So you can do a lot of stuff with git log, dots and dots, and you can, for example, look at what in, say, if you go A.B and A and B are different branches, you can ask for, say, all the commits that are in B but not in A, or the other way around. There's a Stack Overflow question that I'm going to post here, and it explains it really well with actually really nice graphs. And this can also be helpful when it comes to wanting to find out what's in one branch that isn't in the other branch, or what's in, so you can find the difference, like set difference between two different branches when it comes to commits. You can do the intersection. You can do a whole lot of different sets like operations, and you can see it in the Stack Overflow question.
That's pretty cool. I'm reading it.
Okay. Anyone else? Cool. So we'll go ahead and move forward. So we have 12 viewers. I'm looking at the viewer count at the bottom. Is that for the YouTube link, you guys think?
Yeah, I think
How does that correspond?
I can drop out of it.
Oh, just see if it changes?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Probably went down by 2.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, Paul. So next on the list, we were going to talk about DoubleClick for Publishers, which is Google's solution for an ad management tool that we use here. And I was going to talk about that, and Victor and I were going to talk about that primarily because Jen Ledbetter had a question, and whether she was wondering if we could use that for her ticket. And now that I haven't seen her on IRC, so she's out. So we have the freedom to kind of talk about anything at this point. I've worked on a things to do ticket, which is things to do on the new JP2 site. So with that, we can talk about double click for publishers, or we can talk about things to do and what I know about it. So what do you guys prefer?
Things to do sounds pretty good. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a pretty interesting one too. So Victor, do you know anything about things to do?
Nope. This is the first time that I want to see it.
All right, cool. So I got this ticket yesterday. I was in training, and Tracy Smith, she's a project manager here, said, "Hey, we need this ticket done." And I was like, "Okay, I think I can do it." And next thing I know, I was on an email thread with Bala and Mark Medici, some higher end guys here, and they were like, "Hey, we got to get this done." This was escalated by Dayton, and we had a SME who can do it like in an hour. But I wanted to he's a contractor, and I wanted to kind of learn and get knowledge transfer. So I said, "Hey, give me what you got on this, and then I'll try to do the ticket myself." So I was working on this ticket yesterday. It's a bug related to the radius, at the radius site setting not being honored for Eventful. And what he gave me was all of this information, and this was really helpful. If you have no idea about a ticket, no knowledge transfer or anything, he actually said, "Okay, here's what you have to do, and here's some dev notes." That really helped me. And I have to share my screen. Let me do that. So, and let me know when you see my screen. Hey Kevin, thanks for joining. Present to everyone. And then window, and then going back to that. Okay, can everyone see my screen now?
I see Janice 4808.
Yeah, perfect. So Janice 4808, that was the ticket, and it was really a high pressure situation. I needed to get it done ASAP. The first thing I thought was I need to push back and have Dave take care of this ticket, the SME for this. And then I thought to myself, well, if we have at least a day, I can try to learn it and bring some of that knowledge in-house and complete it. So I chose the latter approach, and it worked out, but I really had to stay up late to try to get my head around this and learn it. So the notes he left me were these. You can kind of see the files. Cool, let me see if everyone can see. Okay, I see your screen. All right, awesome. Thanks, Michael. So he gave me the exact files that I need to change. And you don't see this every day. Like when someone gives you a knowledge transfer about something, he gave me the lines I needed to change. And I went over to his desk and I was like, okay, where's the logic failing? And he kind of wrote it and sent me a DPaste. And my mind wasn't processing fully what the logic was, so I took this and I said, just DPaste it to me so I can kind of try to understand it later, and he gave me that. So and this was pretty much the fix. And at that point, I started looking at each one of these files and seeing where they correspond to the page. So going to things to do, I can show you guys the actual issue, Dayton.com. Okay, so and things to do widgets are all over the JP2 site. I've learned I was almost overwhelmed of how many instances we had across mobile and wired. Here's one things to do instance. It's in this is like the things to do dashboard. And now I can start getting a little more technical here, because how does it get that data? We communicate with an API. Eventful uses we communicate with the Eventful API. We pass to it the parameters that are relevant to the search, and we get data back from them. So if you want to see how the request looks, this is what Dave told me. He was like, you could pretty much go to Chrome and kind of inspect the network panel, and filter by events. And those will be the requests for events. And I think I have to, that was a little too specific. So here's one request that we're sending to Eventful here. And you can see we're passing it the API key, we're passing it zip code, and the response that we get back should be something similar to what we see here, Dayton Emergent Fashion. So if I click response here, and then if I scroll over, Dayton Boat Sportsman Fishing Show. And I'm looking for some more stuff. Dayton Boat Fishing Show. Okay. And you can see how long this scroll is. So out of this entire feed, it gets one of these stories and it displays it in the things to do section here. So that's the only things to do callback here. And that's fine, but once you go to, let me see, if you go to the actual things to do page, we have a things to do page. And really what I tried to do was audit all of the places where I needed to make this change. So I kind of looked at the files that I needed to change and looked at the website and saw how they corresponded to each other. So doing that same search again, you can kind of see how it's narrowed down. And I have two searches here. One is for the carousel, and that is an API. There are two types of API calls here, one for search and one for the carousel. They're supposed to be two separate API calls, and one is for curated list of eventful items, and the first one is an actual search of items that you get back. So the producers, let me show you this right here. Where that applies is the eventful data that you see in the most popular list here, popular this week. This is what the content editors kind of curate themselves, and they go into an admin and select these items. And you can kind of see these items here. Scroll over some. Master Monster. I don't see Monster. Oh, then it has more events here, so I might not be looking. If I keep scrolling, I'm sure I'll see one of these 5 events here. So and you can see the headers that are passed to it. It's show tickets, app key, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And what I really needed to do was make sure the within parameter, which is the radius, was passed in all of the API requests here. So that's key. That's how I knew that my code was working. I needed this within parameter, and it wasn't being passed for all of the requests like this. So going to the code, I went here, and I wanted to see something that resembled that code. So go to Metley templates. And this is in V2 newspapers. You'll kind of see that in the URL path here. And I will blow this up. So there was previous logic on line 107 that said if section.zipcode not equal null and zip code not equal null, then set the zip code value here. And that was another issue. So that the zip code was a bug in this, and the radius was a bug. So that logic needed to be corrected. It was kind of broken out like this. It was like an either-or situation. And the section.zip code is associated with the section field, the section page, or the section admin page. And you'll see a field called zip code that they can put in. If not, it defaults to the weather zip code, and that's a site setting called weather_local zones. It'll just use that by default to query the events. So I really had to go through each one of these templates and make sure that this logic was correct for zip code and for the radius. And you can see app key, app token, and you'll see that reflected in the request here. API key, API token, and the other parameters. So when you go to an events page, you see that there are 3 requests here. One request is related to the story wells here. The story well here. Not the story well, but the story cards within the content area. And how do you know if it's events related? Well, you'll see things like find tickets, and the story cards have these share icons here, and some text underneath. So that's a regular story card. That's a headline of a story and a photo. But the things that we're getting back from the Eventful vendor look more like find tickets, find tickets, find tickets. So you can see that data kind of interspersed in here. And then from that point, so that's the first request. And if we start looking, I want to see what is sending it here in the headers. API key, API token, and then looking at the response, you start seeing events specific to that, to what we're seeing by tickets at Ticketmaster. And then I'm just looking for some text that stands out. Oh, your mountain string band. There it is, your mountain string band. You see that? Your mountain string band, your mountain, and that's what we get back from Eventful from this search API request. And then from the carousel, this is the data that you see here. And then we have one last request. Can anybody guess what events it's pulling back? For what section on the page? The last request here. Okay, that's right. It's using the story well. It's pulling events for the story well. So events and things to do, if you keep scrolling down, this last feed is related to the events in the story well. So you see 3 here. So that tells you there are like 3 different templates that you have to modify for this. And that's not even all. You have, I already showed you the one on the home pages, right? You remember the widget that we saw here? That's one instance, and then we saw 3 events instances on the Access Atlanta page. And then if you go to like a section page, you have an events section widget. Which is what you see here, which has a different template, a different presentation altogether. So there are like 5 different presentations just for the Wired site for events. Now that's just for Wired. This bug was also applied to mobile. And keep in mind, it was crunch time, and I was learning all of this like yesterday as I was frantically trying to get this ticket done. It was fun though. So they have so you see one right here, event related call, and so you know from that, since there's one call, there's only one events widget here, and that's what you see here. But I mean, really, that's not all, because they have an events page. So Access Atlanta used to be a full site, and it kind of still is, but it's the new events site for JP2. We just created a things to do layout, and the layout is kind of like a predefined grid with predefined styling and layout. It has a predefined look. So you have 3 different calls here. So you see for mobile, we have at least 4 instances of things to do. So I went through and I've updated all of these files. And just to give you, this is tea time, so we can look at some code. View diff. I have to be putting some of you to sleep by now. Sorry for that. So you see that the previous logic, it was just like not equals nothing, zip code not equals nothing. Basically, I had to break this logic up as I said before, but he expected both of these values to have a value, and that's not really the case. I mean, you're always going to really have a zip code value, and for weather, that's already been set up, and weather just has a default zip code. And like I said again, it falls back to that, but this might not necessarily be true, where zip code not equals null or blank. So it was just like zip code not equal blank. Okay, fine, just use that. But if it's nothing, go ahead and use the zip code. And I don't know if you guys ever seen the filter, the Django filter. You have a pipe, and then default, you can specify a default value. I was going to give it a default zip code of 3030, whatever, something in Atlanta, but you might be in Dayton, and there might not be a default weather zip code defined, which is very unlikely. But if it is, if you're in Atlanta, you could potentially see, well, let's say if you're in Dayton, you could potentially see with a zip code like that, a local one, you could see Atlanta's events, and you don't want to do that. So it was best just to leave that off. And this was an issue where, okay, the radius site setting not being honored. Let me show you how many templates this resulted in changing. 9 templates. So I had to find someone for Wired to test it, someone from the mobile team to test it as well. And it wasn't just the radius, it was the zip code as well. So after all of this was done, I wasn't done, because we verified that everything was being passed to Eventful, the parameters were being passed as we expected. But guess what? Eventful didn't care about these parameters, these new parameters, the zip code and the radius. It just ignored them, and we never got filtered events. So, I mean, looking at the issue in production, and we go to a section. And so this is Dayton's events page, by the way. And you'll kind of see, oh, so it's not here anymore. Anyway, you saw a Cincinnati event here, and it was a radius specified of 25, and Cincinnati was just kind of outside that radius, so it still showed up here. So good luck to them trying to verify this. We're just going to have to play around with the API directly and try to verify it. But anyway, we're waiting to hear back from the vendor, and we requested them to acknowledge and honor the zip code and radius, and we're going to see what they come back with. They've been really responsive in making changes, and we'll see if we get something pretty quickly. Okay, that's enough of my rambling. I'm going to stop for questions at this point, or just discussion or whatever.
So Rob, is this totally baked into JP2 templates, or can this be pulled into, you know, the old newspaper at all?
It as far as what the events with the widgets,
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say they can be pulled in. This is just for JP2 at the moment, and I would say that it could be pulled in based on the fact that they put these in components as widgets, so that part would have to be copied over, and then once you have that component, that things to do component, you can pretty much include it anywhere. The thing is, they have like 4 or 5 instances of this, so if you want all of this, then you have to copy it over to the free site.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Then I'm going to also check heroic debugging. But thanks, Michael. Like, and this is what I want to do. I want people to talk about real life situations or what you figured out or what you don't know. That's fine. Like a question, a design idea, and we can just talk about it. And you saw how informal that was. I think it's a lot of fun. So I had a lot of fun diving into that because I've been leading a team and I don't get to develop much these days. But for us, the onus is on us to learn the knowledge because we had a lot of contractors come in and help us build this JP2 site. And one day we're going to maintain it, like maybe in a month. These contractors will be gone, and we'll have to document and do all of this knowledge transfer for JP2. And then eventually we'll go into maintenance mode, and then we'll be on the new CMS. Choo. Okay. Any other questions or anything? Same to you, Paul. Okay. You know what? So we're going to head out, guys, and just let me know if you have any ideas or presentations for next tea time, and sign up on the tea time page. And I really, really appreciate you guys joining. And I'll see if there's anything else, and then we could just have fun on our Fridays. A few things I was considering. One thing I was thinking about was probably moving this meeting. Just let me know if you guys want to move it to a different time. In the new structure that we have here, I've asked if it was okay if we still had tea times, and we pretty much got it approved. I got it approved by my boss and my director that it's fine. And the biggest thing is we can do this during company time. So I definitely want to keep this going and keep having fun with it and get to know you guys.
Hey, Rob, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
More about tea time. I was just wondering about the problem domains that we could cover or potential topics. Like, how far does this stretch within the realm of computing?
The sky is the limit, I would say.
Nice. No qualifications whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've seen people present like personal hobbies too at tea time. So I would definitely encourage like it doesn't even have to be work related. And I wonder if Michael Lamb is in here. He will probably have some ideas, but he was the pioneer of running tea time. And I was reading a few things on the internet about what you could present, and he had some good feedback. Let me see, are you in here or on the... You could just type Michael if you're not part of the live hangout. Yeah, so Victor wants to present AngularJS, and then Percy Perez wants to present something about Grunt, about how to make it automated and watches your files. And, you know, I don't know, I just see a lot of stuff that people want to learn about. And then maybe Jen Ledbetter will be here for the next one, so we could try to solve her problem. Yeah, a lot of people like AngularJS, so that's very, very high demand.
Hey Rob, I got a question for everybody. Has anybody heard of a programming design paradigm called FOO?
No, can you spell it so I can Google it?
I'll spell it in the chat also. But it's FAUX and the capital O.
I'm totally gonna Google it right now.
Yeah. So the reason why I brought it up is I went to the Python meetup, and by the way, anybody who's local should go. Rob. It's a lot of fun. Maybe if I can understand it. But I went to the meetup last night, and I saw Chris Heisel had a presentation, and it was pretty cool. And it was kind of like an open-ended. He's like going through like a thought process of really separating some concerns out from his data models, and it was pretty much an open conversation, and it had a lot of dialogue, and it was pretty interesting. And then the next presenter, his talk was to the question that Chris was posing to everybody. So it was a pretty remarkable coincidence. But they were talking about FOO, and from what I could gather, and I was 2 beers in, so I'm sure I don't know a whole lot about it, was that it's kind of like a MVC for your logic, separating business rules from like actually doing code things, and it sounded pretty interesting. But I don't know if anybody actually heard about it yet. And I think the guy who kind of started this thing, I don't remember, Gary Bernhardt, pasted a link in there, and I think this talks about it, so it might give some context. But it seemed like a pretty cool paradigm.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. And I've heard of Gary Bernhardt before. Barb, you know who he is, right? Maybe you can speak a little bit to that since you go to the PyCons. So, hey Barb, can you hear me? If you're just hanging out, that's cool too. But so Gary Bernhardt speaks at some of the PyCons. He spoke this last year, and he spoke about the birth and the death of JavaScript.
Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it happened to be he gave that talk at the same time Barb was giving her talk about the Python programmers, and it was just really good. And he doesn't like any of his stuff recorded, so it's hard to go back and watch any of his talks. But he's a remarkable speaker, and people, no matter what he's speaking on, people just try to go and see what he's talking about. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and I will see you next tea time. Have a good Friday.
Thanks so much, Rob. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Rob.
You too. Thanks.
Thanks, all.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Have a good weekend, you guys.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.